Football is violent. We all know that. But some players don't just play hard. They cross the damn line. These are the guys who turned football into a personal war zone. The ones who made opponents fear every snap, not because they were great, but because they were dangerous. Let's start with Roy Williams, the man who literally forced the NFL to rewrite the rulebook. He was a safety built like a linebacker, hitting like a wrecking ball. But his signature move, the horse collar tackle, was so brutal that it got banned. Williams didn't just take players down. He snatched them by the back of the pads, yanked them backward, and left them crumpled on the turf. In one season, he snapped legs, tore ligaments, and ended careers, all while calling it just football. The league finally said enough and banned the move in 2004, but Williams didn't stop. He called the rule soft and kept doing it, earning fines and even a suspension. That's not toughness. That's pride mixed with recklessness, the kind of mix that makes legends and villains. Then came James Harrison, a human tank built to destroy. If Roy Williams broke bones, Harrison broke souls. He wasn't just hard-hitting, he was hunting people. In 2012, players across the NFL voted him the most dangerous man in football, and it wasn't even close. Harrison said it himself. He tried to hurt people, and he meant it. His head-first hits turned opponents into highlight reels for all the wrong reasons. Guys lying motionless on the ground, eyes rolling back. He once said he'd have killed a player if he knew it would cost him $75,000 anyway. That's the kind of cold-blooded talk that made him public enemy number one. Over his career, Harrison racked up more than $150,000 in fines and over a dozen suspensions, and somehow still bragged about it. That's not just dirty, that's predatory. But few players were hated by both opponents and referees like Rodney Harrison. The man didn't just hit late. He hit after the whistle, after the play, and sometimes after the guy was already on the ground. He led the league in fines for years and got voted dirtiest player multiple times by other players and coaches. In one of his worst moments, he leveled Jerry Rice, a legend, with a helmet-to-helmet hit that left him unconscious. And when that wasn't enough, he got caught using performance-enhancing drugs to keep that edge sharp. Rodney was the kind of guy who made every receiver glance over their shoulder twice, not because they feared losing the ball, but because they feared him. But what came next wasn't just dirty, it was downright nasty because the next player on this list smiled while breaking jaws. If there was ever a wide receiver who played like a linebacker, it was Hines Ward. Forget the smile. That grin was the warning sign before he destroyed someone. While most receivers ran routes and avoided contact, Ward looked for it. He hit defenders like they owed him money. The man didn't block. He hunted. His blindside hits became infamous, the kind that left players flat on the field, staring at the sky, wondering what just happened. His most brutal moment came when he shattered Bengals linebacker Keith Rivers' jaw with a crushing block that ended his season instantly. Even his own peers called him out for being a menace. The league eventually had to outlaw those types of hits. But Ward had already built a reputation, a smiling assassin who hid malice behind that clean Steelers uniform. Then there was Richie Incognito, a man who turned being nasty into an identity. On the field, he was chaos personified. He didn't just play through the whistle, he played until someone was bleeding. Incognito's reputation was legendary for all the wrong reasons. He was the guy gouging eyes, throwing punches in piles, and twisting ankles where referees couldn't see. Teammates described him as unhinged. Opponents called him psychotic, and somehow he wore it all like a badge of honor. He once bragged that being labeled dirty was something he was proud of, proof that he got inside people's heads. But the filth didn't stop there. Incognito's off-field behavior was just as unhinged, harassing teammates, losing control at his own father's funeral, and erupting in rage wherever he went. Yet somehow, teams kept giving him second chances because, for all his insanity, he could block like a brick wall. Still, every player who lined up against him knew what was coming. Elbows to the throat, fists to the ribs, and enough trash talk to make a priest curse. If Richie Incognito were a modern-day villain, Jack Tatum was the original back in the 1970s. The league was violent, but even then, Tatum was considered too extreme. They called him the Assassin, and he lived up to the name. Every hit looked like it came from a man trying to erase someone from existence. His most infamous moment came in 1978 when he delivered a hit so devastating that it paralyzed New England receiver Darryl Stingley for life. Stingley never walked again. He died years later from complications caused by that hit. Most players would have carried that guilt forever, but not Tatum. He never apologized. In fact, he wrote a book bragging about his style of play, calling it part of the game. The man was feared, hated, and somehow respected all at once. He wasn't just dirty, he was ruthless. And in today's NFL, he'd be suspended for life before halftime. And if you think that's bad, the next guy didn't just break rules. He made filth his brand. If there's one man who turned playing dirty into an art form, it was Conrad Dobler. This guy didn't just bend the rules, he lit them on fire. Sports Illustrated once crowned him the dirtiest player in NFL history. And honestly, they were being polite. Dobler was an offensive lineman with no boundaries. He spat at defenders, bit them under the pile, and did everything short of assault to gain an edge. His victims said lining up across from him was like going to war with a man who had no soul. Dobler once admitted, "I'll do anything I can get away with." And he meant it. If a ref didn't see it, it happened. He used every dirty trick in the book and probably wrote a few new ones for Dobler. Pain was a strategy. But in the modern era, no one embraced that dark energy like Ndamukong Suh. He wasn't just strong, he was savage. Suh didn't care who you were or what jersey you wore. If you were in his way, you were getting hit, late, low, or with full intent to hurt. His highlight reel is a montage of cheap shots, late hits, and straight-up assaults. The man stomped on a player's chest, kicked quarterbacks after the play, and once tried to punt Ryan Fitzpatrick's helmet off his head. When you play against Suh, you don't just prepare for tackles, you prepare for trauma. Referees had him on speed dial, and the league kept docking his pay like a tax collector. Yet Suh never stopped. He played with a grin, like every fine was just the cost of doing business. Fans called him a monster, opponents called him a psycho, but coaches, they called him effective. That's the twisted truth about dirty players. As long as they dominate, teams look the other way. Then came Vontaze Burfict, the modern face of violence in the NFL. This man didn't hit to tackle, he hit to destroy. His most infamous moment came when he launched himself headfirst into Antonio Brown's skull, knocking him unconscious in one of the most disturbing hits ever seen. Some say that the hit changed Brown forever, not just his career, but his mind. Burfict didn't stop there. He went after quarterbacks' knees, stomped on players, twisted ankles, and even kneed opponents in the groin. The man was in chaos with his shoulder pads. Eventually, the league had had enough. He wasn't just a dirty player anymore. He had become a symbol of everything the NFL was trying to erase. And finally, we reached the king of all filth, Bill Romanowski. The man, the myth, the psychopath. Romanowski didn't just play dirty, he lived dirty. He kicked players in the head, spat in faces, punched teammates, and once shattered a man's eye socket so badly that it ended his career. He once bragged about snapping an opponent's finger in the pile and said it felt good. That's not football. That's a man possessed. Romanowski's rampage wasn't just fueled by rage. Later, it came out that steroids amplified his insanity. The man threw microwaves in the locker room, ripped off gold chains, and treated football like a street fight. He didn't care if it was practice or playoffs, someone was getting hurt. Even his teammates feared him. He fought his own players, broke jaws, and walked away smiling. At the end of the day, Bill Romanowski didn't just cross the line, he erased it. He became the ultimate embodiment of brutality in football. Because while most players tried to win games, Romanowski tried to win wars.